AI is a little bit more of a black box for all of us. There are likely many signals there as well, but they're not going to be the exact same as a search engine. We had years as SEOs to figure out what those signals were
Right.
because Google never shared them directly, but we could, you know, figure them out over time. With I really feel like there is not anybody in the industry that truly understands those signals.
Welcome to Rewired, How AI is Reshaping Human Decisions. Hosted by Andy Halko and Tony Zayas, this show unpacks the AI headlines, experiments, and edge cases that actually matter for marketers and revenue teams. From shifting buyer psychology to new playbooks for acquisition, nurture, and sales, we connect the dots between AI trends and what you should do next. If you want less hype, more signal, and a clearer view of the AI-driven buyer, you're in the right place.
Hey everybody, welcome to Rewired. Last episode, we were talking about how to find where AI is guessing about your company. And today we want to look a little bit about how to actually solve the problem. When it is guessing, how do you fill that void? So, Andy, you have a solution that you kind of built out and how to approach this, the authority systems. Tell us a little bit about how that solves this issue of AI guessing about what it is your company does.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's about trying to build that authority for a specific topic. And depending on your business, that might be multiple topics. But you really want to give that signal to AI engines. You are the source. You are the authority on this. And it's not too dissimilar. I mean, in some ways, you think about Google was the same way, and they looked at quality and relevance. I still think that, is still part of the pie. But I think what is different with this authority approach is that Google, you could have quality and relevance for a very thin slice. And that meant if you were searched for a key phrase, you could have one page show up, right? I think on AI engines, it's a little bit more that you need to show this topical authority that feels more substantial, more connected, because it is grabbing a lot of information and making a recommendation off of it, or it is bringing up an answer, and it's not doing it in the same way as like a thin slice like Google did with a page.
So you got to have that depth on the AI side of
Exactly.
things. Yeah.
So it's really just been trying to build out this approach that helps us figure out how to create this authority within a site. And so we've kind of developed a model to do that.
Yeah. And before we dive in and take a look, I actually yesterday I saw on LinkedIn, I don't know who posted it. I don't know who it was citing. I wish I would have remembered, but it looked like there was someone who did an experiment and published like at two different sites, a whole bunch of content all at once, all AI generated, and then all AI generated content like over time, kind of like more of a natural publishing schedule. And basically I think they were testing to see if, which of those methods would work and how it would perform and all that. But what I found interesting is both of them pretty rapidly. The one that published, 100 articles or whatever out of the gate, it fell off of Google and disappeared almost instantaneously. But its visibility in the AI engines grew significantly. And both of them performed really well in the AI engines, but the second one eventually dropped off. So Google's not paying attention to a lot of AI generated content. And that's not necessarily what we're talking about here today. But it did, the AI engines did, because they saw the depth of the amount of content of related publishing. And so I thought it was just interesting to see that.
And this can really get into the weeds, right? We used to talk about SEO, and we had even that periodic table of search optimization, and the fact that search engines had hundreds or thousands of different factors that they considered when they ranked a page. And I'm going to go back to that single slice, but there were factors for that, and one of them could be length or how recently it was published. And even if it was published recently, there's a signal that it's not timely, and so it goes down. There's a lot of things, and I think the interesting thing is that AI is a little bit more of a black box for all of us. We There are likely many signals there as well, but they're not going to be the exact same as a search engine just because they are doing two very different things. One is servicing a bunch of single pages for you to find. The other is pulling together information, synthesizing it, and then providing an answer.
Right.
And so both of them are going to have like a huge list of signals that drive what information is most relevant for them. But I think the challenge is we had years as SEOs to figure out what those signals were, because Google never shared them directly, but we could you know figure them out over time. With AI, I really feel like there is not anybody in the industry that truly understands those signals. And then, especially if you take in the fact that there is no dominant AI engine at this point, Google had 75% market share of search. Now it's like, do you consider Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity or Copilot, whatever it might be? Each of them is going to have their own system of signals and mappings. So it's just so different.
Yeah, and I think the single page, the reference of like talking about Google looking at single page at a time and what it's related to, but more specifically, it's looking for topic at a time. I think that's interesting because I think people in the marketing space tend to look at this that have done a lot in the SEO side and kind of look at the AI stuff as the same. And there is a lot of related, but ultimately it is significantly different because the goal is very different for what it's delivering as opposed, on the AI side as opposed to Google.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking pure search, and I'm not even talking Google's AI answers, right? If you're
Right.
talking pure search, it is just fundamentally listing individual pages. There is no combination. And you're right. I mean, the old algorithm took into consideration the topic and what it was connected to and all of that, and even the overall site rank, but it's just fundamentally different. And
Right.
so I think we really have to, again, shift the mindset a little bit of how this works. And so when you get an answer in AI, it's taking into consideration for that one paragraph, maybe thousands of pages to answer a single, like, 4 sentence paragraph, right? And
Right.
so they're just, it is hard to compare, like, one page gets surfaced versus 1,000 are, somehow influencing the copy that is coming out of the AI engine.
Yeah.
But I think that gets us to our authority system, right? I'll bring up one of our examples. An area that we do a lot of business in is ed tech. We work with a lot of ed tech companies, and so we really want to show the AI engines that we have just strong authority within that space. And so we've developed this authority system. And the way that, I've looked at it is building it out in a hierarchy of broad to surgical topics. And there is a strategy to that. And then making sure that it's all very highly connected, that there is a connective tissue. I almost a picture in my brain, synaptic pathways, how you see those graphics of how everything connects, right? And I think I see that because it's this, you want to see it as this bubble of authority that has all these pieces and connections. And so we've developed this where, at a very high level, you have these, what we call, it's the atomic authority system. And so you start out at the organism level, which is like a much broader topic. And then you move down to a molecule, which is kind of a narrower slice. And so this organism is broken into molecules. And then it goes down to an atom, which is a hyper surgical specific thing. And the signal that it is telling AI engines is that we don't just have a surgical. It's not Google where it's the one page, which is often the surgical approach, right? What it is seeing is that we've got broad authority. We understand these higher topics that break out, and then we also have authority on the very narrow slices of it. And it just provides that signal to say that, okay, in buyer psychology and decision making in ed tech, we understand how ed tech buyers actually make decisions, and that is content on its own. And then down to a surgical why proven matters more than better in education. And so this authority system is broken out into multiple organisms, multiple molecules. All of them have atoms underneath to really show all of this different stuff. And so it really truly is about trying to build a very deep content authority, you know, system.
Now, if someone's watching this and following and has been creating content, for let's say years or months or whatever it is, um, does that fit into this, or does this have to be all new?
Well, I think you can replace. I think what the challenge has been is that most people saw blogs as a linear process and maybe a little bit connected, but not entirely. You would come up with a schedule of topics, and often it was topics, right? Like, and every week we're going to put out an article or every month. And I think the change in mindset is this is not linear. It's not we're going to come up with a schedule over time and they're not going to connect. This is about, for me, sitting down and in the beginning say, I have this topic. I'm going to deconstruct it into 40 or 80 different pages that are going to have broad to surgical specificity within them. And I'm going to make sure that they all make sense together, and then I can build that out maybe over time. But I've started with this idea of I'm building authority in a specific topic. And so for those folks that have created blogs in the past, I think one strategy we've done is, rewriting and taking topics that relate to an authority system and moving them into the authority system, and they become some of the surgical pages. So if you randomly talked about some topic 3 or 4 times in a blog, well, maybe you can bring that back into a true authority system.
Yeah, I think the authority system does. The kind of big distinction is how it, like you said, the kind of neural pathways, right? Like it's all connected. And I think that's the important aspect of it to show that level of depth. But we've been targeting ed tech for quite a long time. So we had a lot of ed tech content, and a lot of it got moved into here, refreshed a little bit, which is a good practice anyway. But I think I kind of threw that one out there because if you do have content, doesn't mean that it's like not useful anymore. You should just, need to, like, it can be worked into this approach here.
Yeah, I think, again, I mean, it comes down to a simple fact of you want to be seen as an authority on a topic over other folks, that you are the source, right? And so for us, it's been less about that long-term blogging of just random topics, which it often was, or maybe you had a little bit of, topical strategy throughout. This is much more connected, deep, intense, and has that broad, the kind of surgical hierarchy to it. And the the signal that you are really giving AI engines is we are a definitive source of authority on a topic, right?
Right.
And
And I
so it
think that,
worked really well. We found massive success with this so far, this strategy of being able to influence these AI engines. And it really is understanding the mechanics of it and building out systems that really make sense for how they operate.
and I think something that when you say authority, I think that has to be in all of your content. You can't just, it can't be content for content's sake. That doesn't work with the AI engines. They want to see differentiation. They want to see consistency of your message, something that you repeat and reinforce. So it is a different approach. It's interesting to see the differences because, again, I think a lot of times people talk about SEO and AEO in somewhat interchangeable fashion, but I think even what you mentioned about how blog schedules and people were blogging and publishing articles, that matched the goal was to show up in search engines. So it makes sense.
A page, right? Again, it's
Right,
back to
page at a
that idea
time.
of we wanted this page to show up for these terms, and that just isn't as relevant. But I think you make a great point. I mean, we didn't get into it, and it is a whole other thing of what this content looks like. I agree with you. It still has to be quality. It has to be something that, is valuable. But the biggest thing that I've been pushing folks is to have an opinion, to have a flag in the ground on these things. I think what doesn't show up in AI engines is the generic of where you're just kind of saying what everybody else says. And really what it comes down to, if you're going to ask something in AI and it's going to give an answer and it is looking at thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages and documents that have been created on that, if they all say the same thing, it is going to create a couple paragraphs that surmise that. And because it is all just the same, it's not going to bring any result. But if you have something that is very specific and moves away from that topic, you become something that's referenceable. All the generic stuff gets pulled together, and then the next paragraph is here's this other viewpoint on it, right? And so I think there is something really important to the idea of it's not even just about authority, but it's also about being opinionated, creating a flag in the ground so that the AI has something to latch onto with your topic versus just like merging it in with the same thing that everybody's saying everywhere. So that is a big part of the authority system too, is that opinionated, definitive approach to the content.
Yeah. Good stuff. And we've seen some really great results in that approach. So if anyone out there wants a hand with getting an authority system built out, please feel free to reach out. And this was a good conversation. Stuff is all changing so rapidly. You got to stay on top of it. So we will see you guys on our next episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to Rewired. If this episode sparked ideas for how to market, sell, or build an AI-driven world, subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more leaders find the show. To go deeper on AI, buyer behavior, and modern go-to-market strategy, head over to Insivia.com.